The streets of Jedi were fairly empty as many of the citizens had already turned in. Those who were on the street caught sight of Nori, and they quickly moved to run past him. Could they feel the absolute seriousness in his gait? Or perhaps they saw the fire in his eyes. Nori couldn't tell, and he didn't care. Nori moved into the alleyways between the buildings as soon as he could, especially after several groups of lowlanders ran past him. He couldn't blame them if they ran to find City Guard. Whenever he got to the mouth of alleys, he paused and gazed around. Whenever he saw patrolling guards, he simply waited in the shadows for them to pass. Nori moved with the silent ferocity of a cat, slinking from shadow to shadow. Considering his size, it was quite a tremendous feat, but one Nori had taken a great skill to during his Chutar training. Nori eventually came to where the Karaba clan stronghold was. It was a nice house surrounded by a large wall. A pair of guards stood out front, and they were on alert. Their eyes darted to the shadows, and there wasn't really a means of approaching them without them seeing. The gate was across the street from where Nori was, and the walls extended on either side long enough that the guards would see him coming if he tried to be sneaky about it. Nori took in a deep breath, and then he stepped out of the alley. The pair of guards noticed him as soon as he did, and they drew their weapons. Rather than charge the guards, Nori simply walked up calmly to them. One hand gripped his Tetsubo, which leaned on his shoulder, and the other hung at his side.
Hold it right there! Who the hell are you? And what do you want?
Nori continued to approach them, calmly closing the distance with a neutral mouth and focused eyes.
I'm here because I have business with your boss.
If you have business with the boss...
Nori leapt with such suddenness that the pair of guards could only watch in absolute horror. His Tetsubo sailed through the air and crunched down upon one of the guards' faces. The bones in the man's face shattered, and his nose sank in, deflated. The other guard opened his mouth to scream out, but Nori sidekicked him in the stomach. As the man knelt over, Nori brought up his Tetsubo, and then brought it back down. It cracked open the man's skull, and he fell on top of his friend. For safe measure, Nori squashed the other man's head to stop the guards gurgling. He placed one of the bodies on top of the other and then pulled them both by their legs, right into the alley where he had come from. When he turned back around, a woman stood in the mouth of the alleyway. She was a tall woman, perhaps taller than even Flara. The woman had soft brown eyes and a pair of braided pigtails that hung off either side of her head. She had a sword at her side, although it was still sheathed. Her attire was quite different than that of the guards that Nori had just killed as well. The woman wore a pair of brown leather pants, a bone-white collared sleeveless shirt, and a pair of sandals. The woman smiled at Nori when he raised his Tetsubo up toward her defensively.
Whoa, easy there, friend. You and I don't have to be enemies. In fact, we might be able to help one another if your aim is to get inside the Karaba clan manor.
Help one another? So, you're saying you're not with them?
The woman held up her hands, and she slowly approached Nori. His muscles tightened, and he watched her with a steely gaze. Nevertheless, she casually walked up, placed a hand at the end of his Tetsubo, and gently pushed it down so it no longer blocked the space between them. Nori allowed her to do this.
Yes, there we go. No need to smash me, not when we both have the same goal.
So you want to get into the stronghold too?
As a matter of fact, I do. I've actually been in an adjacent alley, watching and trying to figure out how I was going to slip past the guards. And then you just show up and utterly crush the guards without any remorse. I'm impressed. My name is Alpha Luxie. And you are?
Daisko Nori.
I've seen you in town, playing the lute. There are so few Onistans who aren't in the Northeast, and only one that I know of this far east. So, why are you trying to get into the main base of the most annoyingly powerful crime gang in the city?
I'm going to wipe them all out. And you?
Luxie arched an eyebrow at Nori for a moment, coupled with a smug smirk. And then the smirk fell away.
Oh, you're serious. Wow. Well, I need to get in there to save 3 people. These bastards took some of my family hostage, and they've been demanding that I pay a hefty ransom, plus additional future obligations for their safe return. I'm here to rescue them.
The Karaba clan abducted your family? They did something similar to someone I know. That's why I'm here, to prevent them from ever doing that again.
You do know how many people work for the Karaba clan, right? Like nearly 50 or so? And you're just gonna go in there and start killing them?
Yes.
By Sato's hairy nutsack, you are one of the funniest people I've met in a long time. Honest or otherwise.
I was being serious.
Yes, I know you were. Which makes you that much more enjoyable. You'll let me come with you, yes? I have to get in there anyway, and it might be easier for you to fight if you have someone to stand by your side.
How do I know that this isn't a trick?
Because if I wanted to fight you, you would have already been well aware of my intentions. Now, it won't take long for the Karaba bastards to notice their buddies are missing. Should we start the party now? Or do you want to grab a bite and a beer first?
Luxie tilted her head but rested a hand on her sword hilt. Her smile radiated with a strange sense of strength, and Nori's spirit quakened a little.
I hope I don't regret trusting you.
Oh, don't you worry. You won't be.
Luxie drew the sword from her scabbard, and then she held it to her side. The blade had a slight curve to it, and the hilt had been wrapped in black dyed cloth.
That is a really nice sword. Makes me wonder what kind of person you are that you'd have something like that.
Oh, thank you. It's funny, but your Tetsubo is of master quality as well. Not the sort of thing a wandering musician, even a successful one, would be able to afford. It seems like we both have interesting backstories to be shared at a later time.
Luxie stepped out toward the mouth of the alley, and she glanced toward the now unoccupied entrance of the Karaba Manor. Nori moved past her, with his Tetsubo on his shoulder. Within a few strides, Luxie caught up with him and kept pace with him.
Okay, so we're just walking in the front gate. Shall we kick in the front door, too?
Sounds like a plan.
Luxie's eyes opened a little wider, and she shook her head. Nevertheless, she still smiled. Nori moved past the gate. The Karaba Manor was a fairly nice building with multiple floors, a roof-covered patio, and rice paper sliding doors. There was a koi pond to the left of the gateway, and a couple of trees that surrounded the pond. A cobblestone walkway extended past the gateway, and it went to a wide wooden bridge that stretched over the pond. The actual manor was on the other side. A pair of armed guards sat on the patio, and they noticed Nori and Luxie when they walked in. They got to their feet, drew their weapons, and then called out.
Hey, who the hell are you? How did you get in here?
So much for trying to sneak in. How about this, Nori? I bet you a bottle of rice wine I kill more than you.
The pair of guards ran across the bridge, and multiple doors on the manor slid open. More than a dozen armed guards stepped out, and they locked their attentions on Nori. Nori rolled his shoulders, and then held up his Tetsubo in front of him defensively.
I'm gonna take that as a yes.
The thugs stormed the pair of them, and Nori swung his Tetsubo in wide arcs. One of the thugs didn't anticipate Nori being able to bring the large weapon back around as soon as he did, and the war club clobbered the right side of his face. Nori deflected the thug's attacks and then spun in small circles to avoid spear tips and blade swipes. As he twirled about, he used the momentum to batter his foes to the ground. When Nori struck enemies in the limbs, the arms or legs crumpled and lost all form. That usually slowed them down long enough for Nori to maneuver away from them. One of the women stabbed a spear at Nori, but he sidestepped it and broke the weapon with a downward strike. Before she could get away, Nori struck her as hard as he could in the center of the chest. The sternum cracked under his might, and she wheezed as she fell to the ground. Several bodies lay where Luxie stood, and her blade had been coated in a crimson stain. She parried Thug's attacks, and then she chopped off heads, arms, and even hands clean off of the bodies. Luxie's footwork was masterfully placed, and she slid past axe strikes, sword thrusts, and even spear points. Each of Luxie's attacks managed to forever mangle one of her foes. The thugs around her stared in horror, but Luxie, she smiled. Nori stepped back without looking, and then he fell into the pond. Water splashed all around him. As he tried to step up, his feet sank in the mud. As he broke from the surface of the pond, 4 thugs stood on the bank. They had ravenous smiles, and they stabbed at Nori. When he brought his Tetsubo out of the water, it sent a massive wave up toward where the thugs were. In that moment, they shielded their faces from the water. Nori slapped his Tetsubo against their ankles, and it knocked them all to the ground. He raised his Tetsubo high and then slammed down upon one of the male thug's crotches. To be honest, Nori's gut clenched wildly as he imagined he heard something pop. He managed to get out of the water, but then he felt a scraping on his back. Something sharp cut his shirt, but luckily his armor saved his skin. Nori whirled around and knocked the woman's head clean off her shoulders. 3 of the thugs who had assaulted Nori before rose, but the 4th still writhed on the ground. They threw themselves at Nori, but he kept them back with swift strikes. They stayed on the outside of his range, and they kept their gaze on him. They didn't see that Luxie had gotten behind them. It was only when her blade erupted through the front side of one of their stomachs that they realized where she was. They turned to look, and Nori smashed one of their heads. Luxie and Nori finished off the last of the thugs, and the garden became eerily quiet.
There is no way the others didn't hear that.
Yeah, but on the bright side, we killed a bunch of them. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I didn't get hurt throughout the combat. Are you all right?
Oh yeah, those bastards never touched me. I can't believe you fell in the pond. I was scared for you at first, but once you got out, I just knew I had to give you shit for it once we had gotten through this.
Luxie moved around Nori and then gazed at something.
What are you looking at? Did I actually get injured and I just haven't realized it?
Doesn't look like you're hurt. Your pretty armor protected you.
For a long moment, Nori just stared into Luxie's eyes. They sparkled with an intensity that made small shivers dance on Nori's spine. After a moment, Luxie smiled.
So according to the carnage, I've slain 15 people, and you've crushed 11. So far, I'm winning.
There are still more thugs to kill. And the boss is worth 10.
Oh my, that's fair.
Nori and Luxie carefully moved inside the manor through one of the doors. They came to a hallway with rice paper walls and sliding doors on either side. A great and terrible quiet filled the entirety of the manor. Rather than move down the path, Nori jabbed the end of his Tetsubo into the wall. The thin fabric tore as Nori forced his weapon through it. 4 wide-eyed thugs gaped at Nori through the now large hole. Each of them had spears and swords ready to stab through the walls, but now, well... Luxie tumbled through the hole in the wall and then landed several feet away from them. Their eyes shifted from Nori to her, but then back to Nori as he rushed them with his Tetsubo ready. He knocked the spear that was poised for him, which gave Luxie the opening she needed. Her swift blade zipped in, opening up one of the thug's faces like 2 slices of bread. Nori crushed one of the thug's arms, but Luxie removed his head. Of the remaining 2, Nori only killed one of them. More thugs stepped in through the hole in the wall, and through the actual door to the room. Nori stepped up to the hole, but Luxie defended the doorway. A flurry of thuggish attacks came his way, and Nori kept blocking and batting them away. He maintained his ground, though, and he thrusted the length of his Tetsubo into the thugs' bodies when he could. When the openings came, Nori exacted savage Onistan fury on the foes who stood before him. The last foe fell to Nori.
Hey, you still with me?
Yeah. You still good to see this through?
Oh yeah, seriously. We must have killed more than half the clan by now. I'm up to 24. You?
I'm up to 25.
What? Ugh, damn. You are ahead. Let's hope the boss has a few more hench people.
Nori and Luxie stealthily moved out of the room and through the rest of the first floor layout. There weren't anyone else on the first floor, so they made their way to the second floor. As soon as they did, they came upon a hallway with 2 large storerooms with heavy wooden doors. Both of them were locked. A man at the far end of the hallway yelped, and then he disappeared around the corner.
Boss, the intruders are here! They're coming this way! Well, don't lead them to me, you idiot! By Saito's grace, were you born stupid?
Nori and Luxie ran down the hallway with weapons poised to strike. They turned the corner and then stepped into a large room. The room was covered with tatami mats and had several lush pillow seats around a large square table. There was even a balcony overlooking a back garden opposite the way that Nori and Luxie had entered. 2 men and 1 woman stood at the far end of the room. One of the men had a weasel-like face with a pair of incredibly large bucked teeth, ratty-looking hair, and slanted little eyes. He had a sword at his side, but it was still in his sheath. Wetness covered the front of the man's trousers. The woman wore a kimono, but she had a short sword in one hand and an axe in the other. She had short blonde hair, 1 green eye, and a patch covering her right eye. Several deep scars were carved into her cheeks and forehead, but they were long-healed. The second man was a morbidly obese fellow with a receding hairline, a pair of large, buggy-looking brown eyes, and some of the smallest lips that Nori had ever seen on a person. It was quite strange when considering that the man had intense cheek jowls and 3 or 4 chins. The front of the man's robe were slightly undone, but they were stained with food and other dark colors that could have been wine. As soon as the rotund man saw Luxie, his lips formed a sneer.
Captain Alfana? What? You're one of the bitches carving through my people? How dare you?
Well, Honcho, you didn't really give me much choice. You kidnapped 3 of my crewmen and demanded that I pay you gold and a cut of our cargo to get them back. What was I supposed to do? Lay down and let you screw me?
When my family finds out what you did, you're going to pay. We won't forget this.
How silly of you to assume you're going to make it out of this room alive.
The apparent boss and his 2 little henchmen turned their eyes on Nori, and the boss Honcho quaked a little more. He pointed at Nori.
You're that Onistan, the one who attacked my people in our warehouse. What the hell is your problem? As far as I know, we didn't do anything to you or those 3 little mage bitches you were with.
You took the husband of a doctor hostage. That sort of thing is unacceptable. And so I came to ensure you won't ever do that again.
You did all this over that bitch Dr. Kausisti? She deserves to die, especially after what she did. It's all her fault my brother died. If she was actually a good healer, then she could have cured my brother of typhoid plague. Oh, you've made a terrible enemy. You and those 3 mage whores.
Nori took a step toward the trio, but Luxie held up a hand. Across the room, the armed female stepped in front of the fat man. Meanwhile, the rat-looking man cowered against the wall.
Hold on. Where are my crew members? I swear, if you killed them, I'll...
No, they aren't dead. They're just tied up in our hostage room.
You mean behind one of the 2 locked doors in the hallway?
Yeah, that's right. Tell you what, I'll give you the key to that room, and then we'll go our separate ways. You 2 won't ever show your faces in Jedi again, and I'll not hire bounty hunters to kill you. Is that a deal?
Nori's muscles tightened, and he gripped his Tetsubo tighter.
Okay, if you give me the key to your hostage room, I'll stop right now. I'll get my crew, and then we'll leave.
For a long moment, no one said anything, but they all just stared at one another. The boss snarled once more, and then dug into his robes. He pulled out a ring of keys that had 2 keys on it, and he removed one of them from the ring. He tossed it to Luxie, who caught it with a free hand.
Now get out of here!
No.
But I gave your captain my key!
Oh, this Onistan doesn't work for me. He's his own independent contractor, and not connected to the deal you made with me. He's probably still going to kill you.
Nori charged the woman who held the axe and the sword. To her credit, she rushed to face him as well. Her movements were graceful and skilled, and many times her axe or sword almost scraped Nori's torso. However, instead of cutting him open, it revealed more of his armor. Nori brought his Tetsubo around many times, but he kept missing the smaller, scarred-up woman. Nori smiled, and then pivoted past the sword strike. Rather than dive for her, Nori leapt closer to the boss and then swung out. The boss ducked at the last moment, but Nori closed the distance. His war club smashed a hole in the floor and it broke one of the beams holding up the ceiling. The woman got between Nori and the boss, and Nori started pumping out all of his might against her. At this point, she could not counter his attacks, but only dodge them. The boss tried to run through the door, but Luxie stepped in his way and flashed her sword before her. It stopped the man for only a moment. At that same moment, the thug bodyguard turned her attention to Luxie. Nori spun around and then knocked her legs right out from under her. She fell onto the mat with a loud thud. Before she was able to regain her footing, Nori crushed her right kneecap. The woman howled, but only for a moment. Nori smashed her head with a savage strike. Just as Nori turned back to face Luxie and the boss, the rat-faced henchman dove in, hoping to stab Nori in the back. Nori simply sidestepped, and then smacked him in the back of the forehead with his Tetsubo. Full force.
No! I don't want to die! I just got into war!
Nori crushed the back of the boss's head. The man's eyes rolled back and then closed altogether. After the second strike to the skull, Nori rummaged around the man's robes for the other key.
Robbing the dead, are we?
You're telling me that you're not curious what's in the other room?
Oh, I am. You're a very interesting person, Nori. I like you.
Thank you. Let's go save your crewman, shall we, Captain?
Yeah, I suppose I left out the part where I was captain of a smuggling ship, didn't I? Just like you left out that you're some kind of undercover Chutar. Most likely protecting one of the 3 young women that fat piece of lard mentioned. How about we just not mention who we really are, and we just be friends? Nothing more, nothing less. That sound good to you?
I suppose so. Also, I totally won.
Only because I gave it to you. Come on.
Nori and Luxie went to the pair of locked doors. Luxie opened one of the doors using the key the boss had provided her, while Nori opened the other door with the second key. He moved inside and then stopped to behold a large chest with baubles. Many of the other opened chests had piles of gold in them. Several pieces of exquisite art hung from the walls, and several jade-carved animals lay on several shelves. Nori was about to leave the room when a certain item caught his attention. Resting on a shelf in the back of the treasure hold was a square black box with all sorts of strange carvings on it. Nori got closer to it, and then picked up the box. Something was inside, but there wasn't any sort of apparent mechanism to open it. Several tiles on the sides and the top slid a little.
Ooh, what's that?
Nori jumped a little, but he whirled around to face her.
Oh, sorry. I found my crew and we were about to leave, but then you didn't come out. Seems like you found something very interesting.
Yeah, I suppose I did. You know, this imbecile sure did cause you a lot of trouble. Maybe you and your crew members should take as much as you can carry.
Considering who you are, that is the funniest suggestion I have ever heard.
I thought we weren't going to mention who we really are.
True. I suppose my crew and I will take some wealth for the road. Are you also going to take as much as you can carry? You have much bigger arms than most.
No, I don't really need art, gold, or jade creatures. But I will take this.
Nori gestured to the wooden box.
I think it's a puzzle box. While I don't care for them, I know someone who might really enjoy it.
Well, aren't you a big sweetheart? Would you mind waiting with us so we could all walk out together? You know, just in case more of the Karaba clan show up.
Sure.
Nori lingered outside of the treasure room while Luxie entered 3 crewmen stuffed their pockets in bags full of golden coins. They left the stronghold and then traveled toward the docks by way of the alleyways. Once they got toward the center of Jedi, Nori stopped.
I'm gonna go off now. Thank you for fighting with me.
Are you kidding me? The pleasure was mine. To be honest, I might not have been able to save my crew without you. Listen, I'll be leaving Jedi in the morning, but I'll be back eventually. How about you and I have a drink the next time I'm in town?
Sure. I might be able to do that.
Great. Goodbye for now, Onistan.
Nori watched Luxie and her 3 crew members leave, and then he started to head back to the university. When he got back, the same pair of guards who had given him directions were on duty. They didn't say anything to Nori, but they opened the door for him and watched him with wide eyes. Thanks Saito, they didn't mention his armor, which was still slightly visible through his shredded shirt. Nori returned to his room, took off his armor and clothes, and then rested the wooden box on the top of his dresser. As soon as he laid down on the bed, his eyes drooped closed.